Ladies and gentlemen, my very dear students, Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all of you. The topic we have selected for our today's discussion is uh, emphasizing on style and language in academic and technical writing. Right? So, this is the topic that we shall be discussing for our today's session. Uh, the first thing before I start is when you, or anybody, he or she, anybody who attempts to write something or who tends to write something, right? The most important thing that rescue everybody in writing, that is the language, without which everybody appears to be mute, and without which you cannot express your ideas. And ideas without language, they remain unexplained, they remain unsubstantiated, they remain unmaterialized. And the second thing is that when you are writing something as a writer, you need to understand, you need to have the analysis of your audience, of your readers need, right? And then second thing is when you sit to write something, you need to keep in mind the objective or the purpose for which you are writing, and possibly who will be your readers. So considering their need and using that type of language is the most important thing in any kind of writing, either that is technical writing or academic writing. So then the next thing is the characteristics of effective language. Language, when used effectively in both technical and academic writing, it has got 6 characteristics. Number 1, it is concrete and specific. That language which is not vague and abstract. Most of the time, the language we select, it is a material one, and at the same time it is clear one. Then the second characteristic of an effective language is that it is concise, not verbose. It doesn't have that verbosity of words. Then the third is familiar, not obscure. That means the language the writer uses or is using, that is familiar to the norms, to the culture, and to the individual use who is reading the document. Then the fourth characteristic is precise and clear, specialized, right? And that at the same time is clear in expression and meaning and purpose. That means the language which is inaccurate and ambiguous. Then the fifth characteristic of effective language is constructive. Language that is not destructive, that has got something positive. And the last one is the degree of formality or appropriate formal language, either it is technical or not. So let's jump direct onto the first one, that is concrete and specific language. Concrete language includes a description which create tangible images with details the reader can realize. Abstract language is vague and obscure and does not bring to mind specific real images. Right? And consider these examples. He's a bad roommate. Okay. He's lazy and discourteous. He's untidy and unclean. He does not clean up his own messes. He leaves his dirty dishes on the kitchen counter. Your relationship with John is unacceptable. You do not get along well with John. You and John have a lot of arguments. You and John insult each other too much. You and John call each other derogatory names, right? So this was the first expression, first sentence. And when you go reading the further down, right, the things, right, becomes concrete and specific in this regard, right? And at the end, you have got a very clear-cut picture. And if you might have noticed that how much these statements become effective as language becomes more specific and common. Then the next thing that is there, the concise language. That means the economy of words and the use of language. A hallmark of effective writing is the ability to express the desired message in as few words as possible. Good writers, in other words, use language which is straightforward and to the point. Consider these examples. It is widely discussed by the employees that many of them will be forced to change jobs and take on a new responsibilities when the merger takes place between the two companies, right? Second example, before making decisions about whether the person on trial is guilty or innocent in this case, the members of the jury should be sure to carefully think about, ponder, and reflect on all of the important and relevant testimony in this, right? So, the entire crux, right? Watch here. The entire crux is from the second example, right? That is before making a decision, right? The phrase should be sure to carefully think, ponder, and reflect. Contains three ways of saying the same things, right? The sentence could be improved by using one, right, key phrases like to reflect on, right? Instead of having too many words for the reflect on. And then in case of second example, right, here you can see, right, a way to reduce wordiness is to eliminate fillers. What are fillers? Fillers are those words that are present in the expression but they do not carry particular meaning, right? They are just there. When, for example, when the merger takes place between the two companies, right? When the two companies merge, this is how, right? This is the latest one, and this what which you read. So watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and here 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4 to 5 words, right? So this is how the precise language functions in your right side. Then the next thing is, the next element is a familiar language, right? Familiar language is that which the readers easily recognize and understand because they use it on a regular basis. One of the most important functions of language is to build homophily, right? Our sense of commonality with one's reader. Language which is of foreign and unfamiliar to the reader tends to emphasizes the differences between the writer and the reader and makes the message difficult to understand. By using language that is familiar to the reader, the message is likely to have more impact. For example, you can see here an example. The presently assigned paper necessitates an eloquently articulated analysis of the existentialist perspective as it pertains to contemporary living. You should elaborate the points which represent Shinqua, none of your analysis, right? So, how many of you have understood it or gathered it? Right? Uh, Perhaps this is it is most easily and most commonly have been said as an analysis of existentialism, right? And a letter sent to high school students warning them of the risks of an unhealthy diet. Who will read it? Read it, someone. Hello?
So, from individuals who maintain a diet.
Yes.
So, individuals who maintain a diet of high fat content are exposed to an increased risk of developing atherosclerosis, which is a buildup of fat deposits on the inner walls of the arteries. This condition can reduce or cut off the flow of blood in the arteries serving the major organs of the body. This can lead to poor health.
Right. So this is about the overuse of fat-oriented diets, right? Rather, this has been very simply said. Students, you are warned not to use over-fat diets because they cause artery blockage, right? Then, uh, then the next is precise and careful language. Precise and clear language. Precise here means a specialized one, right? And clear means the having clarity in it, right? For example, you can see here all the words: probable, doubtful, certainly, right, unlikely, perhaps, all these five words, right? And you have to use one, right? So probable is there, doubtful is there, certainly is there, unlikely is there, perhaps is there, right? So when writing any piece of document, you need to write the language. You need to decide upon that language that has got a precise language that is at the same time clear in its meaning and expression. Then we have got another example of precise and clear language: expensive, hot, intelligent, good, spicy, right? So always use all those words that are not only precise but at the same time clear one. Then another example, consider the following example. Note the potential confusion or ambiguity in these phrases. Why the student's body should continue in the state of apathy in is not really understandable, right? Uh, Confused statement. Our student's body is dull and slack-minded. Again, confused student. Which student body? The practice and the theory of politics are studied in the classroom, but political habits on the campus do not seem to benefit from such labor. Then the next example is: he's an interesting individual, right? It is difficult to estimate the number of people affected by AIDS, right? So all these five examples, you can better have the idea of the value to use precise and clear language. All these five examples are a fine example of an obscure statements where nothing is clear from the side of the writer what he particularly wants to say. He is talking about something, but that something is indefinite, not definite. That means it should be precise one. For example, include your children when baking cookies, right? As safety experts say, school buses passengers should be belted. Bank driver in window blocked by bolt. Killer sentenced to die for second time in New York. 10 years. Eye drops off shelf. Right. These are some of the headlines from the newspaper. Right, in the printed newspaper. So in such case, it might be okay, but in this case, it is never okay. In this case, where my cursor is. Then the next is constructive language. Always use that type of language, right? Which is constructive one, means constructive language phrases a potentially negative message in a positive way. Whereas destructive language directs blame and criticism towards the reader. You can see the examples here, right? Superiority over the reader, indifferences or apathy about the issues of the importance of the reader, negative evaluation or judgment of the reader, command and control over the reader, skepticism or doubt about the reader's credibility. And consider the following example in this case, right? Constructive versus destructive, right? And from all these three examples, you can better have the idea, right? For example, boss to the employees, your job performance recently has been unacceptable and there are no excuses for it. You have claimed that you have having some serious personal problems, but even this is true. You cannot allow it to affect the quality of your work. If your work doesn't improve, I will have to replace you with someone else, right? A mass language that is a destructive one, right? Second, students to instructor. You have confused me so badly with your lectures that I don't know what to do. I'm considering dropping out and taking the class next quarters from Dr. Johnston, who can explain the information much more clearly. I don't want to drop out, but I have never been so frustrated with an instructor in my whole life, right? Direct blame, direct criticism, destructive language. Then watch the third example, instructor to students. I have never had a student who was so confused with this material. Perhaps you should take an easier course from an easier professor. It makes no difference to me, right? Again, uh, destructive language, right? So this is how you have to take care of the use of the language. Never ever use destructive language. Use constructive language for all kind of connotations, either positive one or negative. Then the formality of the language, right? In all of our documents, or for every document, either technical document or academic document, we need to use formal language, but that formality of the language should be in accordance to the reader's circumstances, reader's situation, norm, culture, rights, etc. Right? So watch here all three examples: formal, informal, and very formal. First of all, I would like to start with the formal one, very formal. Exceedingly large segments of the population are expressing their discontent with medical practitioners who appear to more engrossed in amassing financial assets than in providing efficacious care to people with health disorders, right? Very formal, where most of the words seem heavy, seem alien. Formal. A large number of consumers are complaining about medical doctors who are apparently more interested in making money than in provide effective health care. And informal. A lot of people are unhappy with their doctors who only seem to care to take care about how much money they make and not about giving their patients good care, right? So, what language you have to use? You have to select upon the formal type of language. It shouldn't be very formal and it should not be at the same time informal. Rather, use formal language with appropriate tone and style, right? So, at the end, you may have some words, right? For example, utilize is there, use is there, transpire is there, happen is there, facilitate is there, help is there, expedited is there, impediment is there, obstacle is there, comprehend is there, understand is there, pernicious is there, mistaken is there, uh, exacerbate is there, worsen is there, right? So this is how you can see very formal and formal at the same time, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, my very dear students, that was all from my side. Inshallah, we'll see you people tomorrow with our new topic. Here I cut short because I have a guest to attend. Thank you very much. Take wonderful care of yourself. Bye bye. Allah Hafiz. For now.